Finally, Africa continent is awake. Finally, African leaders can now start speaking the same language as all Africans. Finally, our forefathers who had fought so hard for the independence of the African continent can now start rejoicing, knowing that what they had fought for, it is about to be realized by this new generation of Africans. The moment of truth, it is here.
We're not going to ask for a favor. So we were not on a begging mission. Africa should never be seen as a continent that needs generosity. We want to be treated as equals.
African leaders have to face their fears once for all by addressing the Western, which was presented in a couple of countries over there. And the President of Republic of South Africa had a nail it when he get the courage to face about how they've been fooling Africans with all this summit time to time, yet there is no result. The President of Republic of South Africa, President Cyril, had to expose the mafia of the Western. Guys, you are not going to believe this, but I'm inviting you first to have a listen to what President Ramaphosa had said before we get to continue with more analysis.
Beggars that we are being dealt with out of generosity. I think it's important in the new era that the world is in now that there should be a good measure of equality among sovereign nations. You know, recently, 7 African countries decided to go and put a call for peace to Ukraine and to Russia. And we raised a number of issues. Zambia was represented, Comoros was represented, Republic of Congo was represented, Senegal was represented, Uganda, as well as South Africa. So we were all represented, and Egypt as well. So we were all at one, that even as we were going to address an issue of the war which has had a negative impact on the African continent, which is the rise in prices for food, rise in prices for fertilizers, we were clear that we are not going there as beggars. We are not going to ask for a favor to both Ukraine and Russia. We were going there to say, open up the Black Sea Channel so that the grains and the fertilizers should go into the world market. So we were not on a begging mission, even as we are in great need as a continent and all that. That should go to demonstrate that Africa should never be seen as a continent that needs generosity. We want to be treated as equals. Even in the multilateral institutions, we want to be treated as equals. And if our equity is at a low ebb, there must be ways in which that can be addressed. To us, this is very important. Our sovereignty is one of the things that we hold on dearly to. And we demonstrated that very clearly to both President Zelensky and to President Putin when it came to this issue. Even as there were suggestions that, yes, we can donate this, we can donate that, we said, we want you to release these grains and fertilizers to the world market so that the world can trade in these commodities and other issues we can handle in a different way. I wanted to make that point so that it should be understood where Africa has evolved up to. We want to be key players on the world stage, want to be key players even in the financial markets and in the MDBs. Now, these are the positive things. I do, Mr. President Macron, want us to address another issue which to us is a bit of a negative. You will have heard President Sisi talking about the 100 billion that was promised in Paris. President Sassou Nguesso yesterday as well also spoke about it at the dinner. Now, there is that issue that a number of the commitments that have been made have not really been fully lived up to. But before I get into details, let me immediately say that we recognize the many initiatives that have been put on the table, and a number of countries here have done so. Germany has gone out of the way to put a number of initiatives, and the US has also done a number of things. But there have been times when we felt like we were beggars. I played a key role as chair of the African Union during the COVID period. We felt like we were beggars when it came to vaccine availability, when we felt we needed access to vaccines, and the Northern Hemisphere countries had bought all the vaccines in the world, and they were hogging them. And they didn't want to release them at the time when we needed them most. And we felt like we were begging. And at times it felt like they would just be droppings from the table, that yes, we will give you that and that. And let me tell you something that generated a lot of resentment. We resented that, and it got worse when we said we want to manufacture our own vaccines. And when we went to the WTO, there was a lot of resistance, enormous resistance. And we kept saying, what is more important, life or profits by your big pharmaceutical companies? And that too, I must tell you now, generated and deepened that disappointment and resentment on our part, because we felt like life in the Northern Hemisphere is much more important than life in the global South. And these are issues that need to be addressed. And I'm glad that we are all seated here like this, because we've got to get to the heart of these matters and address them.
You know, this kind of speech, it is the kind of the speech that Africans need in general. When we get to see our African leaders having this kind of courage to speak in behalf of Africans, this is kind of the speech that can rejoice the heart of Africans. This is kind of the spirit Africans people need at the moment, especially when it comes towards the Western with their mafias. I'm so proud to see how African leaders are now understanding what we've been saying time to time in our videos, and what you guys have been engaging through the comment. Your message goes out there, and African leaders, they get to listen to it. This is very interesting to hear. When President Ramaphosa, sitting in front of Emmanuel Macron, who's the president of France, and the Chancellor of Germany, they get to listen to this kind of message. Well, guys, in this speech that President Ramaphosa had given, I have noted 5 points which are very important, and these 5 points had put the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, in a very comfortable way. Did you see his reactions when President Ramaphosa was talking about this? He was very uncomfortable. If we had to bring a sign professor here to read his body language, guys, trust me, you will find out that the President Macron was really uncomfortable with this truth that President Ramaphosa was hammering on him. In his speech, as he was talking, the first point that I get to notice when he spoke about our sovereignty as African continent, our sovereignty as African country, that is something which belongs only to Africans, and they should stop trying to abuse African sovereignty, because each and every country around the world, it has its sovereignty. And these people, whenever they're trying to invade a country, whenever they're trying to involve themselves in another country business, they go there and forget about the sovereignty of that country. So President Ramaphosa had to remind them that you guys should be seeing us in a very different way, because we are also a sovereignty country. Things that you're not going to allow us to come and impose or say to your countries, those are the same things that you guys are not allowed to say also or to do in our countries. So he had to remind them and insist on that part. And you get to see how President Emmanuel was shaking on his chair. He could not even be able to feel comfortable in this Paris summit, because Paris, it is his state and he's supposed to be more comfortable. But apparently African leaders had agreed on something to go and expose the mafia of the Western, to go and expose all the lies of the open IMAS system. That is something that we really... Another very interesting point which I did like from this speech from President Ramaphosa, it is when he spoke about Africans, that we are not beggars. Yes, we are not beggars. President Ramaphosa had to put it, actually, if I could have just borrowed him my brain by that moment, I was going to ask him to go even more far, telling France with its alliance that Africans were not beggars. So they should stop making these things look like Africans were the one who need help from them, were the one who are begging from them. No, instead, it is them who need Africa. It is them who want to have what Africans have. And therefore, they've been trying by all means to make it look like Africans were beggars and them they're givers, which is not truth. We all know that Africa, we have everything, but them they come with this politics of destroying or holding Africans to remain in this hard position, so that whenever it is time for African needing help, them they should jump as the number one to come and suggest with the ads and trying to pretend on how to help, on how they're helping Africa. So we are not beggars. I like that fact that President Ramaphosa had to remind them that we are not beggars, and they should keep that in mind, that Africans are not beggars. President Ramaphosa spoke about the previous meeting which the 7 African leaders which were presenting the African continent who went to Russia and Ukraine in peace negotiation. It has raised a lot of rumors around the world, especially from the Western. They have been considering this visit as something else that does not really have meaning in front of their eyes. Therefore, they've been criticizing it, and President Ramaphosa have to come and address this matter again, because they're kind of like criticizing Africa, thinking that Africa can't bring a solution to the world crisis, thinking that Africa can't negotiate for peace. So it is only good for them to go around the world and negotiate for peace whenever there is some conflict, which them they have created. They have to be the first one who have to send the peacekeeping militaries, who have to send a lot of solutions suggesting on how to bring peace, which they never succeed, by the way. But when it is the time of Africa going to Ukraine and Russia, suggesting or asking them to bring up peace so that the world economy can get to develop and everything can go back to normal, they consider Africa like useless group of people who don't have nothing to say to them, because they are used to see Africans as the same slavery Africans that they used to have back in days of colonizations. That is the reason why they could not consider what African leaders had put on the table, like those 10 elements that they had tell President Putin and Zelensky in order for them to bring peace. So they feel like Africans, they don't have nothing good to offer. And President Ramaphosa have to remind them that, no, look, we need to be treated in the same way. We need to be treated in an equal way as everyone out there. Why do you have to see Africa like a group of people who can't bring a peace out there? What if Africans, they are the only solution to this war that is going on in Ukraine and Russia? You're never gonna know. So President Ramaphosa had to remind them once again that, no, you need to respect us and you need to treat us as a partners and not like your slavers. During the time of COVID-19, President Ramaphosa was the president of the African Union. He suffered a lot. He went through a lot, because as the president of African Union, you need to come up with a solution. And as we all know that the COVID pandemic, it was not easy for many nations out there, especially Africans. We all saw how Africans were even paid in order for them to be using as toys in order for them to pass the approval of this COVID-19 vaccine. But what they did, they went on and buy all the vaccine and leave Africans without vaccine. In every country, they did have their own vaccine, and forgetting about Africans. Do you know why they did so? They did like that so that Africans will go and start begging. And that is why President Ramaphosa had to remind them that during the time of COVID-19, you made us feel like we were begging for help. We were begging for help in the time when we needed it the most, but no one could not help us because you want to sell. A lot of you came out, you were promising too much empty promises like always. No, I will give you 5 million of vaccine. No, UK government will give you so much vaccines. No, Germany will give you these vaccines. No. They keep giving too much promises of vaccine, yet they did not deliver it. And they end up making African leaders to buy for these vaccines at a very expensive price. We all know. We even saw it on the news with our 2 eyes on how the government of South Africa spend a lot of money buying those vaccines in order to save people. But God never sleeps, because some of African pharmacies managed to find out on how to make African vaccines. And now it was about time African Union with African leaders to decide whether they can also produce vaccine which belongs to Africans. And they all approved that, yes, we can do so. But you know what happened? They went on and refused in those so-called international organizations of medicine and whatever they call themselves. They make sure that Africans should not produce their own vaccine. Do you guys still remember what happened in Madagascar when they find a treatment to COVID-19 and they went and begged these people, telling them that, no, look, since you guys, you can't even be able to give us what you had promised us, since you can't even sell us the vaccine, then at least allow us to also have our own vaccine. But they refused, treating a black man as someone who's not capable of inventing or creating or coming up with a solution to this world pandemic. So President Ramaphosa had to remind them of this, that it was something which was very shocked, and it had left many African people to not even trust you, to not even rely on what you guys can say. So it's about time they start seeing Africa in a very different way. That it is the spirit. That is how things supposed to be. He went on again to talk about the empty.
I want to speak in support of this proposal, that to prove that these summits are not summits where we just talk, flowing from the Paris COP as well as others, let us now put money on the table and collectively say we are going to address this mega project. A mega project which will in the end generate electricity for up to 12, 15 African countries all at one go. And this is a project that I think the multilateral development banks here working together, the call that you've made, President Macron, can actually fund. And where, as we rise from this, we should be able to say the Inga Dam is now going to be developed into the Inga Power Station, the one that President Sassou Nguesso mentioned, and the next one as well. If we can do that, then we as Africans will now be convinced that these summits are really meaningful. We will now go home and say, you know what, it's worthwhile going to these summits, coming to Europe, and to listen to all the promises because they are willing to act on the promises. This is what President Macron, I believe, will be one of the most important outcomes. The reform of the financial architecture, as well as a practical project, infrastructure project that is going to add a lot of value. President Sisi and I have been talking about a railway from Cape Town to Cairo for years. We will leave that for the next summit, but the one on generating electricity and building power stations on the Inga Dam is the most important, that is immediate, that I believe needs to be addressed now. Let's get that done, and then we will be convinced.
Promises. Yes, he reminded them meeting is a very good thing. But guys, come to think of it, before I even get to comment on what Ramaphosa said, how many summits that African leaders have attended? How many of them all over around the world, whether it is with the US, whether it is with China, whether it is with Russia, whether it is UK, France, Germany, all these power countries in the world, they have called for Africa. Whenever they need to have a summit, they only see Africa, because actually that's even the proof showing that Africa, we have what the world don't have today. And all of them, they are fighting. They want to have us. They want to have peace of Africa, but they don't know how to negotiate it. But how many of these summits that African leaders have attended, and how many of them they have come to bring up, should I say, which have produced something good for Africans? How many of these summits that Africans have benefited something from it? How many promises that this summit, different summits that they have organized around the world for years and years, how many of them they have come up and respect whatsoever they had promised? So President Ramaphosa, this time he hit the hand on the table and reminding them that no, meeting is a very good thing. But how many promises that whenever we say something here, we have to respect it? President of Congo, Sassou Nguesso, who had also to remind Macron that no, you guys recently you had promised 1, 2, 3, 4 about 300 billions of euros, which is supposed to be helping African countries to generate electricity. What happened to that money? What happened to those projects that we've been promising? So President Ramaphosa had to remind them that no, look, it would be better for us to discuss at least about some pending promises which you guys had made in this summit, and you must now start doing things in the proper way, so that when we go out from this summit, we can have something to say to our people that we went to this summit and here's the result. Not too much empty promises. Well, let's wait if that will happen. But as far as I know, these people, well, they'll come up with another excuses. Enough with empty promises. Enough with the empty words. Let us put money on the table and try to do things in the right way. By the time we leave this place, each and every African child should know that yes, our president attended a certain Paris summit, and this is the result from that summit, and not these empty promises. Be careful of what Ramaphosa just said there. That is something very important. Do you know why? Perhaps this could be the last summit that African leaders will attend. You'll never gonna know, because listening to this kind of language, you can tell that all the African leaders, they are up now here. They're tired, they're fed up. All the African leaders, they don't want again this open eye mask coming to tell them what to do and what not to do, and calling them like babies, taking them around, they don't want that anymore. They have understood that Africans, they are now tired. If you want to be re-elected in your country as a president of your country, then you should know at least to speak a language that your people, they are speaking on the street, and not to go over there and pretend like you are a deaf who can't even open their mouth. So I'm so proud to see African leaders are now understanding our language. I'm so proud to see how they get to speak one by one. You guys, you heard President Ruto, how he had to stop trading using the US dollar when it comes to neighboring countries or African countries. Any country where there is no US dollar as their official monetary, he decided to start trading with those countries in the local currency. Isn't it that beautiful? Isn't it this is the moment when other African leaders should just join him and come up with one African currency, so that we can get rid of all these things once for all. Well, I believe this message, it is a very good message that we need to encourage. That is the reason why we have to come here and try to talk a little bit about it so that we can all both be in the same page. We need to encourage this kind of speech when it's coming from our African leaders so that they will continue to do good, so that they will continue to talk good about African people. Thank you so much for watching this video. It was very important that we get to share this message with you. Don't leave without giving us your thumbs up. We really do appreciate. Do that because it will help us to reach even more big audience out there. But if this is your first time, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, comment down below. Tell us also what you think about how African leaders they are now behaving lately in a different summit that they are attending. Well, that will be all for today. For now, continue to be yourself. Be good, be kind, have respect for everyone in order for you to be respected. May God bless you all. I'll see you again very soon. Ciao, ciao.